Minutes. Okay, so hello everybody. We're here for another seminar of the Media Education Lab. We're happy to have with us the Labsters, the way that we call them, and the presenter today is Zoe Wang, PhD student in the joint program of the Rhode Island College and the University of Rhode Island, and she's gonna tell us about the presentation that she's going to do at the Digital Media and Learning in Los Angeles next month. So, Zoe, all yours.
Okay, thank you, Auntie. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Hi.
Just if everybody can close their mic so that we can hear Zoe, and then at the end we'll have time for questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can start. I'm going to share my screen with your presentation.
Okay. Hi everyone. I forgot to put who I am on the presentation because I know everyone here today. Today I'm going to talk about social media and China, two very controversial topics. Can everyone see the presentation though? Okay. All right. I am by all means not an expert, but as an international student from China, I have experienced and encountered some issues with regard to the social media and communication and learning. So I just wanted to address these issues, and I attempt to address these issues, and I look for, maybe we can come up with some collaborative ideas and in terms of what we can do as educators. So, okay, everyone can see the presentation now, right? Okay, cool. So this is, as we all know, that this is an age of globalization, and can we turn to the next one? I could just say this.
It doesn't. Wait a minute. Okay.
Okay, so, all right, as you can see, I accidentally put one of my favorite things, which is statistics on the top. So this statistics showed us the number of social network users in selected countries in 2014 and 2018. So as we can see, quite obvious, the #1 country is China, which in 2014 there are 381.6 million social network users and 504.1 million expected in 2018. And it's exceeding the United States, not surprisingly. But I believe that India is a quite promising state that will be growing really fast. We can go to the next. So that has drawn us attention to this red region, which is China, the country that I come from. And next. You can just pretty much go on. Yeah. So today's topic is about global social media equality, China's social media sphere, and freedom beyond the Great Firewalls. Although I put it there, but I don't really think that the firewalls is quite appropriate in here, because a lot of times when people refer to the Great Firewalls, people think about, oh, censorship, and all the international social media are blocked in China. So a lot of people confuse or about the censorship and the blocking, and at the same time the growing number of China's social media at the same time. So I want to just take us to just look at what the China's social media sphere is really look like and what is really going on right now. So this picture, oh, hold on. I'm sorry. All right, so this picture pretty much show a kind of, I like it because it shows a kind of a lot of alternatives of social media. I don't know how many of those that you recognize, but those are mainly, most of them are China's social media. Okay, and we know that Facebook and Twitter, Google and YouTube are banned in China. So with that said, that does not mean that China has isolated completely. And a lot of you might have heard that China's social media has been growing so fast. So let's look at what we have at the same time. Okay, you might have to click more than 3 times. I made a mistake, so okay, cool. So this social network is called Renren. Most people say that it's an equivalent of Facebook. It is true that they have a lot of features that are similar to Facebook, but it's not complete copycat. So it's founded in 2005. So it started just targeting college students. I think it's quite this social network is quite smart because I think college student is the easiest target audience that you can reach in terms of social media back in 2005. And it started not with the current name. It started with the name 校内, which means on campus. So pretty much its target audience back then is just all college students. And it's branding themselves a leading real name social networking. So I think it's quite a generational growing trend of this website because when it started, it's just college students, and a few years later, you realize, oh, those college students are going to graduate and won't be, if we still college on campus, it's very narrowing this target audience. So they want to expand, and they changed the name to Renren, which means everyone. And it has expanded its target audience from only college students to college graduates, which a lot of people tend to white-collar professionals. So by the end of last year, it reached 223 million active users. And by the end of last year, 80% of the users accessing service through mobile. So that just give you a sneak peek of how it looks like. I haven't logged in there for a long time, but I just, in order to show you just how it looks like, I just logged in and took a snapshot. And it has a really cool feature, which you can see on the right bottom side. Those are features showing who has recently visited you. So that I think interests a lot of people. I remember when I was in college, I didn't have my phone accessing it. So when I was away, I was like really, for a long time, I was like, oh, I want to see who has visited me, and maybe some people I had seen on campus, but I just don't know them. And so it has made me it had made me like really addicted to it for a while. So I think this is a very cool feature of it. So as you can see, the layout pretty much very similar to Facebook, and I mean it has changed a lot of things, and it has also the timeline features, which just pretty much the same as Facebook. You can go to the next one. This is a lot of people say it's an equivalent of Twitter, but also it has some features of Facebook, or for example, the interfaces of this social networks is quite accessible. Versus when Twitter started, the image features weren't so convenient. But when Weibo started, all the image features and retweeting features are quite convenient for Chinese users. And it also with Weibo, it also has a limited of 140 words per tweet or per microblog. But with Chinese language, you can contain so much more information than English letters. So that's another kind of interesting feature of it. We can click. So it was launched by Sina in August 2009, and by the end of the first quarter of 2015, it had reached 198 monthly active users, and 86% of those access this service through mobile. Okay, the next one, which is Youku. You can kind of, by the name, you can kind of feel like it's the equivalence of YouTube. I put this Youku versus YouTube picture on. I can explain to you because underneath the logo of Youku, it says "The world is watching," which is the slogan of Youku. And underneath YouTube, it says "We cannot see." So that pretty much makes sense to the Chinese people. For us, the world is watching us, which through Youku, the world can see China. But with YouTube, with Chinese people, they cannot see what is going on YouTube. So it's quite kind of ironic. Youku has branded itself as a leading internet television company, which launched in 2006. It's, by their own word, it's Netflix. It's building a Netflix plus Hulu plus on a YouTube scale. And one of the features of Youku is really cool is that they put on a lot of TV shows and movies for free. So, for example, a movie, maybe a movie after a month of the movie premiere, it was free on Youku. So a lot of people can access those movies on Youku for free. And some people say that the copyright laws in China are not that developed, or there's just absence of those copyright laws. So it gives some benefits for Youku that they can just put a lot of things without copyright issues and let people see it for free. So that has helped Youku a lot. And this little guy here, really cute. It's called QQ. And it's It's launched by Tencent. This internet service company launched QQ, which is an instant messaging service, in 1999. And by the first quarter of 2015, it has a monthly active user of 332 million, which is a decrease of 2%. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, because the smart device users has increased. I think that might be one of the reasons that the overall accounts has decreased by 2%. And we can go to the next one, which is WeChat. It's a product of Tencent, and it was basically a mobile kind of communication service. It was launched in 2011. Within less than 4 years, it has reached monthly active users by 549 million. It has a lot of cool features. As we can see in this little picture here, it has live chat, it has group chat, and you can basically use your phone and scan the QR code, and you can add contacts. And also you can import contacts through your QQ account and from your phone and address book and stuff like that. And it has also video calls function, which I use a lot with my parents, obviously. And it has voice chat, which some of you might have experienced, like you can send voice messages to your friends, your family. And it has this shake function. When you shake it, you can find some people maybe nearby, and you can just connect them like in physical space. So it has grown so fast. All right. So as we can see, and of course there are so many more new social networks are growing. What have introduced just a minute ago, or just very major and very dominant and fast-growing social networks. And now we can see, so on one side of the Great Wall, there's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Google, blah, 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 and people are really enjoying it. And on the other side, it's not completely isolating. It's very blossoming. The social network growing are very blossoming. However, people have been, as the great saying said, people from this side will always wanted to get the other side, and people from that side always wanted to kind of see what's going on the other side. And one of the interesting phenomenon I have observed is that there are information sharing. There's not, for example, YouTube is blocked in China. Does not mean that Chinese people cannot see what's going on YouTube. Facebook, Twitter is blocked. Does not mean that Chinese people cannot see what people are tweeting, what people are sharing on Facebook and Twitter. And that being said, also does not mean that YouTube cannot see anything from Youku. So this, as an example, when you search Youku on YouTube, you can find Youku original productions, and you can find some best Youku videos. And when you search YouTube, which is not always remember it's not completely censored. There's no censor on the word YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Next one. So when you search YouTube on Youku, you can see best YouTube videos there. So we can just go on next. And on Facebook, you can search for WeChat, and I found this like close group which has 18,000 members. You can find on close group on Facebook, and on Weibo, you can find Facebook's official accounts, YouTube, and there's even verified accounts by YouTube. And of course you can find official Weibo accounts by Bill Gates. Obama might not have an official one, but there are people keeping track on him. So everything. So I found this account. It says that updating everything Obama tweets on Twitter. So. Okay, so now that has, I wanted to, I don't know if I can do this now, but I wanted to kind of give more examples, like about education, like on Youku, we have this entire education channel, and we have different lectures from, just podcasts from different universities in China, and we have also this TED official account. So basically, TED Talk from all over the world are shared on Youku, and also there's multiple health talks and just a lot of things that you cannot access in. You may think that without YouTube you won't be able to see it, but that's not true. You can also see it on Youku. Just take another example, like one of my favorites, even not favorite, but yeah, one of the YouTuber that I liked, because she has the same name as I do. Her name is Zoe, and she does this kind of like beauty or fashion or makeup and hair tutorial in the UK, and she's very kind of popular among teenagers, and it's very kind of Western kind of culture, kind of subculture or youth culture kind of YouTuber. And I would not think that you would find her on Youku, but actually when I search for her, there are more than 100 videos available. Of course, you won't be able to find her official channel, but there are a lot of people putting what videos that they like on Youku, so you can see them. So with that said, you can actually accessing a lot of information without those shared access. So that has raised some questions. First, so are there still issues with this situation, with this kind of already a lot of shared information on social networks? And second, what are the existing or potential issues can these I call it non-conventional inequality can bring to future development and online learners? I want to explain this. Why I call it non-conventional inequality. I think it might not be the perfect word to describe it, but I think it differentiates with what people think normally is the inequality on digital space. So yes, there are social networks are blocked in China. There are limited opportunities or shared information with Chinese audiences. But there are a lot of efforts has been made with this to kind of like maximally shared information with those blockings. So I wanted to talk about, like, discuss with you guys what are the potential issues can these non-conventional inequality can bring to the future development and online learners. And last but not least, what are the potential trends in digital learning in a global scale? So I have thought about this inequality in this digital space. So we definitely have inequality in access. People or students or teachers or learners from China definitely can have a lot of difficulties accessing those shared international networks. And what can those trouble us? For example, we have closed groups on Facebook. A lot of people in the United States are using closed groups on Facebook. As you guys may be part of it, like, for example, international communication groups, or digital learning group, or teaching media group. And a lot of people in the United States or in other countries, they have easy access to Facebook. They will share what they see, academic articles or something interesting, fun facts. They can share, like, instantly within those closed groups. But with the Chinese scholars or Chinese students, they might have difficulties accessing those. Yes, there might be people who are, like, transporting them to the Chinese platforms in order to share with the Chinese students. But there's time and efforts needed. If there's no blocking, the communication and interaction will be much easier. And also with the information, as we said before, there are a lot of information have been shared on both sides, but it's not a whole information shared. It could be partial information shared. And what would partially information shared could cause understanding and learning. And also, the limitation of access can cause the absence of communication and interaction, which plays an important part in learning and development. And also, there might be opportunities that people from both sides are missing. As I come up with these, you have limited choices. And with partially shared information, you might miss some of the context. And we all know that missing context it's crucial for understanding, controversial topics or issues, or just understanding the entire picture of the situation, or the information, or the development. And also, it might cause misunderstanding, and also with those walls or gaps between China and the world, there might be missed opportunity that shared culture are building. And also, there might be missed opportunity with shared communities. I think one example would explain it. We can go back to a little bit. For example, the YouTube community has been developed really fast, and there has been a culture called YouTube culture or YouTuber culture, and there's a huge community that has been organized by Google, which they develop a lot of workshops with YouTube creators, and they have developed a lot of gathering with YouTubers so that they can share their creative ideas, or they can share their techniques, or they just can communicate and interact or collaborating with each other. And although China has a lot of creative creators on their social networks, but they're kind of building their own community, maybe share their own culture, building their own culture. So what about in between China and the world? There's definitely an absence of collaborating between China's creators and the world's creators, like creators from the United States, from Australia, from the UK. There's missed opportunity and communications. And so with that being said, as educators and learners, what can we do to kind of confront the situation? And what can we do to, what are the choices that we might have to push this kind of globalization forward? You can go to the next one. I have thought about it, and it's a quite difficult question, I think, and it's quite controversial. And with China's, government, and with the concerns from the government, I don't think that open up those website to Chinese users is going to happen anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But with the situation, what can we do? I think first, I definitely think that ambassadors are needed. To explain it, I think a lot of us here are ambassadors. Like I'm from China, and we have Lisa from Russia, we have Shihana from India, and we have international communities here. So as we acknowledging or aware this kind of situation, we can be engaging and kind of active ambassadors in just improving the situation by sharing the informations, or learning platforms or knowledge through the platforms that we do use. And as educators, we can educate ourselves or our students to think other alternatives. Like, for example, I know I communicate with my Chinese friends, with my family a lot with Weibo and WeChat. So a lot of times I kind of being this messenger to transport the information that I have shared with my Americans or international communities and share them with my Chinese friends and families and community members. And of course, I think with this situation, a lot of discussions and actions and so much more can be done. Yeah, and I would like to hear what everyone else in here think about this situation. What maybe some of you have a lot more ideas of what we can do to improve or to confront this kind of digital inequality.
Hello, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the great presentation. I really liked how much different examples and illustrations you used, and it really opened my eyes about social networks in China. I had no idea about all these social networks. I don't remember whether you talked about how the situation initially started. So why is it so important for Chinese government to block all the networks outside of China, and why the censorship doesn't go further if it's clear that it's not absolute and that people do get access to all these networks?
Right. And the situation, I think I might have to add something about it if I want to do a more comprehensive presentation. It's because, as I always said, you have to understand the singularity of China. So you have to think about the historical and cultural context of China. So China is not, despite of the long history that China has had, the People's Republic of China has found not long ago. And so there are a lot of stability issues that concerned by the government. So, and with all the protests and activities going on, the Chinese government has been really cautious about different expressions or speech. So that might have been the very original concern by the Chinese government. And then when they started the internet service in China, they have very cautiously let people using those kind of internet service. And a lot of you might have heard about the censorship and stuff. And the censorship has its kind of shift depending on times. For example, when there's a big event or in critical pivot time point is going on, or there's important event is going on, the censorship would go a lot more strict. And when there is nothing really important going on, the censorship will kind of lowering it down. So so basically, this is censorship and stability issues are the major concern of the government, and a lot of people think, oh, that might be the only concern of government. But in fact, there might be other reasons that the Chinese government initially blocked Facebook, Twitter, or those websites, is that they want to protect their own industry, their own media. They want to give more freedom or opportunity to their own media industry and to kind of grow quite a lot. I think that has to do with why the Chinese social networks are growing so fast, because there's not really major competitors during that time. You have a question? Okay. So for example, when Renren started, if there's Facebook going on in China, it won't, like, a lot of people may go to Facebook instead of Renren because Facebook is so big and it might be more competitive than the Chinese social networks. So I think there's a little bit of protection. Yeah, go. I think you have a question.
Yeah, I kind of. It's just like at some point, for example, I'm thinking like the comparison between Google and Baidu. For a very long time, Google was not censored in China,
Right.
and Baidu still had the major share of the market. So
Right.
a lot of it has to do with the protection of the Chinese government and their own industries. But I think like, and this is like me oddly kind of supporting the Chinese government, which is odd for me. I love you, China, but not too fond of your government.
Yeah, I think yeah. Go
But
ahead.
it's also about like, for example, things like the use of stickers inside Weibo way before Facebook, or I mean even now like Twitter doesn't have those things, or Baidu giving services that were catered specifically for the Chinese consumer that Google never offered. So I think it's also a lot of like how those tools were developed, that even if there was not as much censorship as there is, they would still prevail.
But I think it's a combination of a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And with the Chinese own social networks, Chinese government can control a lot more easier.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons. And protect their growing is another reason. There's if you give them a lot of more market, and also we cannot say, oh, if there's no blocking, there will be such thing happens. We cannot say it by this point. But just think about it. Even if they are not blocked, Facebook, Twitter are not blocked, those Chinese social networks are really targeted to Chinese audiences.
Yeah.
That's what Chinese people like. And with the education and age group and all those targeting marketing factors, they are really good at targeting their target audiences, which is Chinese local people. So
I just love the way they do that
very well. So that's why they do business very well. I mean, we can't say, oh, what is the main reason, or what is it? It's a lot of combination, get together and kind of, push this situation ahead. We really can't say, oh, if it's because of that or if it is because of that. I think, yeah. Well, thank you. I know you have me that. Yeah, I appreciate it. I know that you know the Chinese social networks better. And
So I had a question. The way you present sounds like you're presenting from more the American point of view of like equality and access and content. And I love the fact that you actually, by doing this presentation, you actually applying your suggestion of being the ambassador. So by actually doing the ambassador and talking to us and explaining to us the Chinese context, you're actually doing what you're talking about. But my question is, do you really think that Chinese
want to have this openness to YouTube content, because as good content that there is, there's also some other challenging content. So is it also just you being in the US thinking that they should have, or is it also something that you see in the Chinese context that they are interested in this content?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I really like it because I really like your question, because when I was preparing this presentation, I really frustrated myself. I wanted to make a point, but it's really not that simple. Really, at the time I was thinking, oh, there's really inequality, inequality, between China and the world. And then I realized I kind of being brainwashed a little bit by being in the U.S. and by the United States Western context. Yes, and I like to answer your question. I think different people have different answers. For example, if you ask this question to my parents, they would say, "Oh, we don't care. What I don't care. We don't care about using Facebook or Twitter as long as I can communicate with you, and we have those ways to connect, and that's fine. And we also have, sometimes we'll hang out on Weibo or Renren. That's enough. But if you ask some young people, they might say, "Oh, it'll be so much better if we can see, we can access YouTube or Facebook or whatever." So I think different people have different answers, because a lot of young people have been exposed to a lot of American culture or other American, form of American media, and they are pretty much wanting to know what really is going on. They want to maybe interact or communicate with people from other countries. So they may tell you, "Oh, we want to, use access to Facebook or Twitter, or we want to interact with them." Yeah. I'm curious about what do you guys think in terms of educators? What would you think would be a good way to kind of deal with this question? I'm sure that a lot of you have difficulties communicating with your international friends, or friends from China, or maybe some collaborative project that you wanted to do with some Chinese people that you have found difficulties connecting with them or sharing information with them. I'm curious about.
Can you clarify, when you're asking what kind of educational initiatives, or as educator, what do you mean? That we come to China to teach, or how Chinese teachers should use social networks that are Chinese based? What exactly are you asking?
How do you interact or communicate in terms of learning with Chinese people?
Well, I have an example actually about Haisha, because this is our friend in China, and she wants to prepare to take a GRE exam, and I had some materials and I wanted to share it with her, I think on Dropbox. Yanti, I don't remember how exactly what it was, and we were not able to do that, so that was an educational cost.
Yeah, but at the same time, when I took the GRE, I took it in China, and I downloaded those PDFs for free.
Right. That's right.
There's whole databases dedicated for students to get textbooks. I'm not endorsing it because it's probably illegal for copyright issues. But that's one of the one of the things I miss about China too. Like all of those things that we might see as negative in many Western countries in terms of copyright and access to media. That's also one of the advantages when you are there. For example, that about like this whole database is dedicated to just download textbooks instead of having to pay $200 per copy.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things that educators can do is to educate yourself or your student to not think about things from like this one single point of view, and to combine the context and to keep an open-minded, conception on those issues, and to be flexible of using alternatives.
I say that's actually happening because like being a Western in China, you usually get to hear about like the dissident side of things and how things are like changing, but maybe not. So I would really like to hear about like what you think about the following. It has been said that younger people that are in college now, or even like high school or middle school, they want to get their news through Weibo or some other social media outlet, and they just would not believe whatever China Central Television is telling them. So instead of going for news from the TV or from an official newspaper, they would rather go on the internet to look for information about that. Is that really a thing? Because that's what a lot of China observers that are perhaps too trustful in the openness of China in terms of media might change. I don't know what you think about that.
I think that's a good point. Like a lot of young people has become more and more media literate. They have become like a lot more critical, and I'm curious about if it's because that their choices or their of media are so, and their exposure to the media are so much more, and that has kind of cultivate or nurtured their more critical kind of thinking about it. And along with that, media education, not very developed, but it's developing in China.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of young people, we can see a lot of improvement on those young people. Yeah, good point. Thank you.
I think
Professor Ney, we can't hear you. Professor Ney, I think you're muted. I can't hear you. No?
Renee, you can write the question on the chat, and then Zoe might see it and answer it. No, we can't hear you.
Maybe because of the microphone? Okay.
So in the meantime, Shahana, you're the closest to China, but the cultures are so different. So do you see any relationship with social network in India, which I think are much closer to the American and British kind of?
Yeah,
what is your take on it?
It's not very close. What I wanted to ask Zoe was the whole intention behind having certain kind, like, substitute of YouTube and Facebook and WhatsApp, like all of that. One of the reasons would have been because they don't, the point of view point that you had raised, like China wants one point of view, because if it is in terms of, like, for instance, the unrest that can be caused,
Like, for instance, the reason for having YouTube, if I wanted to share a video of something wrong happening somewhere, right?
Mhm.
So I can still share it through YouTube. So what is it, a political or an economic reason for having these and not being able to access YouTube and other? Uh, because in India we can access all of it,
Yes.
even.
I think the initial idea is because of the stability, because Chinese government is concerned that too much anti-Chinese government speech or thought, or maybe just kind of um, inappropriate content might affect Chinese people, because the education level of Chinese people is not as high as American people, and a lot of people might be kind of irritated or being influenced by those speeches or thoughts by the Western um, um, world. So, I mean, initially, Chinese government is concerned about the political issues, but then
Because
now because the economy is growing so fast and the stability has become, the society has become more and more stable. So the censorship, I think, is not that strict anymore. Can I can I where can I find Professor Renee's comments and questions?
I can read it. I can read it. So
Okay.
Renee's writing, notice that Chinese approach to censorship is based in political and economic protectionism, and its laissez-faire approach to copyright is based on an anti-globalization mindset. This backfire. Could it further isolate China from global world, promote isolation worldview? Insular, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Cool. And it's a comment, right? It's not a question, right?
Yeah, no. So the question is the Chinese decision to don't put attention and enforce copyright and to have a protectionist approach, is that gonna backfire at them and isolate them from the world?
That's a really complex question. I don't know, and because the trend is not that Chinese government is increasingly ignoring the copyright issues. The copyright issue has becoming increasingly major for recent years. Yeah. You know, for example, with Youku, in maybe 5 years ago or 10, you can access a lot more free televisions or movies than you can access now. And now you might have much less access to free movies or, you know, those presentations that with copyright issues. So
copyright issues inside China for Chinese production, or is also globally, like
also
enforcing things that are what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, China copyright issues with foreign productions are always an issue, and with local productions, this issue was not as major as it is now. So there's improvement on awareness or protection on copyright issues.
So going back to Renee's question, do you think that this policy about social network is isolating China from the world, or actually it helps promoting Chinese context to the world?
I think for the past few years, or even for now, is what we can see is that it has helped, either it's intentionally or unintentionally. So it has helped China's social networks grow. But in the future, if they continue this kind of protection or this kind of policy, I think it will kind of brings problems to China or Chinese media outlets to kind of infuse in the global big picture. That's what I think.
So anybody has any other questions to Zoe before we finish? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
A little off track. Does China have some sort of an act or a law to take care of things like the cyber security in terms of individual? Like, like India has IT Act, Information Technology Act, like a law to protect people on the net virtually. Like, for instance, you talked about the whole shaking thing of one of the applications where you find other people nearby you. So I was just like wondering if it's actually something which is creepy as
I have not done research on that, but I think there's absence of that type of protection.
Okay, so I'll try to read it more accurately this time. We have a stereotype that conformity is emphasized in the form of social harmony. Do you think social media promotes creativity, or does it intensify social competitions for status in ways that diminish genuine human freedom? So
I think it enhances creativity, or
promotes. So do you think that social media promotes creativity, or actually it makes people to be not really genuine? And how?
I think again it depends. I know that it's not a good answer. Whenever you answer a question, you said it depends. That's not a good answer, but I think you really have to think about it because I think with the communication, interaction, and that feature of social media, I think that definitely help develop creativity. But then you need to educate people to think critically, not just being mediocre, not just being, share things and, completely as it is, and without any of your own critical analyze or thinking.
Now, going to the second part of the question, so Renee is asking, are those social networks intensify the social competition for status? Do you see that those different platforms in different interaction are making, those kind of competition, and she asked, diminishes genuine human freedom?
I don't quite. What do you mean by social competition, and what do you mean by?
So you bought a new dress and you share about it and then your friends say, oh, but I bought yesterday this dress as well, and you start to competing in that, and you have a certain dress that you code that you want to buy, and not really allowing yourself to buy because you want to buy, I don't know, something else. You don't want to buy this kind of dresses, but all your friends are, and everybody's sharing on it and photos and stuff like that. I don't know. This is like an example that I thought. I'm not sure that that's what Renee means, but
That's not but that is so not exclusive to China. Yes, I think that kind of thing does happen. But then again, I think we need to educate people and think out of the box. I think that has a lot to do with education, or just, you know, maybe not formal education, but some sort of informal education. I think that really has to do with how people think, and how can we change people think.
But it isn't, and my also answer to Megumi, because I don't know those ways that the social network in China works just from your presentation. Is there something that is not just about the person, but about the structure of those social networks, the way that is structured that makes it more competition or more, you know, human friendly and kind of really making creativity, or it's more about competition and I did that and I did that and sharing and even what Shahana was talking about, something about that might be, you know, shaming and sexting and all those things that we can see that things like WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter can cause. Is those kind of things also happen in China with those social networks?
I think with the nature of social networks, I think those things, those things happen inevitably. I do think those things will still happen, and also with the popular culture going on, and with the consumer and kind of culture and kind of materialistic culture going on, those things happen inevitably.
If you see, Renee wrote the culture of conformity is important in China. Mm-hmm. Social harmony is valued so very much. Yes. I wonder if social media may highlight individual personality or character identity, or push people to fit in to their existing social groups.
Good question. I think what I have been observing, what I have been seeing is that it enhances the individualistic part of the society, and with the harmony part, I think the government has more concern about the harmony than actual social network users.
So what you're saying is that China is moving with the materialistic revolution that have been happening in the last, I don't know, 20 years. So with the social network, you're getting to more and more individualism now? Yes. That is being celebrated more than conformity?
Mm-hmm. I can't say if the social media is causing the individualistic, or if social network is a kind of a trend along with individualistic culture going on. I can't say who caused who. Mm-hmm. It's very, I think it's complicated, and I don't see a causal relationship. But I think, yeah, I think individualistic feature is associated with social networks. Definitely, I do see it that way.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Zoe. That was a very insightful presentation.
Thank you so much for bearing with my nervousness and all that undeveloped English. the expression.
It was great, and your presentation, the visualization was great to understand and introducing us to social network. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you
very
for the
good.
opportunity,
And
and
your English is great. Don't say that your English is not good.
thank you. And I did mark down some points that I would kind of improve the presentation. Thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
Great job.
thank you.